Get ready for a deep dive, everybody. We're really getting into it this time, looking at how Jamaica's FINSAC era impacted everyday folks.
Absolutely, and we've got some powerful stuff to work with. We're diving into a witness statement submitted to the FINSAC Commission, plus all the exhibits. It's really a close-up look at one debtor's experience.
Right, and this isn't just some vague account. This is detailed. We're talking financial statements, letters, records of every payment.
Exactly. And all of it seems to point to, well, discrepancies, let's say. A real struggle to figure out what was owed in the middle of this huge financial mess.
And think about it. Our debtor wasn't some, newbie to the business world. This was a director of multiple companies in St. Andrew, someone used to dealing with finance.
Which makes you really think if someone with that experience struggled.
Exactly. It shows how widespread the impact was.
So should we get into it then?
Yeah, let's set the scene. Early 1990s in Jamaica, our debtor, they've got these long-standing relationships with different banks, including one called Workers Bank.
Okay, I'm familiar with them.
So February 1993, they get a loan. Facility for a few of their businesses. Now remember, interest rates were already high back then.
Oh yeah, tough times.
This loan starts at 30%.
Ouch. That's rough even for back then.
And over time, it gets even wilder. That 30% balloons to, get this, over 70%.
I can't even imagine the pressure. Trying to keep your business going with that kind of weight.
And that takes us to November 1997. Debtors facing this mountain of interest, right? So they try to be proactive. They start talking to Workers Bank about, restructuring the debt.
Makes sense. Trying to find a way out.
They reach this agreement, consolidates everything into one account. Sounds good in theory, right?
On paper, maybe. This agreement, dated November 3rd, 1997, it's a mixed bag.
How so?
It simplifies things, sure, combines the debts, but...
But what? There's always a but.
It's the details, right?
Yeah.
They've negotiated this buyback option. After 5 years, they could buy back some of their properties that were used as collateral.
Oh, so a chance to get back on their feet.
Exactly. Some light at the end of the tunnel.
And there was the matter of the personal guarantee. Remember, that's huge. It means you're on the hook for the debt personally, even if your business tanks.
High stakes.
This agreement, it included a clause saying that guarantee would be lifted once the debt fell below a certain amount.
Providing some safety.
And our debtor, they held up their end. They followed through on the agreement, even made payments larger than what was due at times.
Really trying to make good.
But, and you knew this was coming, Workers Bank didn't keep their word.
That's rough. What happened?
3 major things, according to our debtor. 1, they didn't combine the debts like they promised. 2, that whole sale agreement for the buyback, ignored. And 3, they never lifted the personal guarantee even when the debt was low enough.
So even when the debtor's doing everything right,
The rug gets pulled out.
it's like they're trapped in a system designed to keep them down.
And then, to make things even more complicated, February 1999 rolls around. Remember FINSAC? They swoop in and take control of Workers Bank.
You'd think that might help, right? The government stepping in. Some kind of order restored.
You would hope so, wouldn't you? But not for our debtor. So we're talking about this land, right? This wasn't just some side thing.
No, not at all. This was in Trelawney, and the debtor really emphasizes its value.
Prime real estate, they call it.
Exactly. And they even give an estimate of what it was worth. Big money, especially with the tourism industry booming in that area.
But instead of honoring that agreement, letting the debtor buy it back, what happened?
Workers Bank, they transferred the land to the Jamaican Redevelopment Foundation.
The JRF.
That's the one.
And the debtor. I bet they weren't happy about that.
Not happy at all. They claim the JRF sold that land in January 2008 for pennies on the dollar.
Wow. A real slap in the face after everything else.
It really highlights this lack of transparency that seemed to surround these FINSAC interventions. Like, how are these decisions being made? Who was looking out for the little guy?
It's about power dynamics, right? This individual, they had an agreement, but they're basically powerless to stop their assets from being sold off.
Exactly. And that feeling of helplessness, that's something that resonates throughout a lot of these FINSAC stories.
And it's not just the land. The debtor also talks about this constant struggle to even get a straight answer about their debt.
Oh, absolutely. That comes up again and again in their complaints. They list out specific things they wanted the FINSAC Commission to investigate, and it's like different numbers everywhere they look.
It's like they're in this maze, right? Can't find their way out, and the walls keep shifting around them.
Workers Bank says one thing, FINSAC another, Refine Trust. Who knows?
And that's not just frustrating. It has real-world consequences.
Huge consequences. How are you supposed to plan to rebuild your life when you don't even know how much you owe.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit, back to basics. That loan agreement from February 93.
The one that started it all.
Right. We know it was 30% interest, which was already insane, then went up to over 70%.
Yeah.
But then there was the restructuring in 97, right?
November 97, yeah. They consolidated the debts. And I think it's important to note, they agreed to transfer 3 properties to the bank to try to get a handle on things.
So they're not just sitting back hoping for the best. They're actively trying to resolve this.
Exactly. And we've got proof. There's this letter from their lawyers, Myers, Fletcher, and Gordon, dated May 20th, 1998. It confirms that a settled debt amount was agreed upon.
So everyone's on the same page, at least for a moment.
Yeah, you'd hope so. But then there were those costs associated with transferring the property.
Right. Legal fees, all that.
Exactly. So they take out another loan. This one's for those costs of transfer, as they called them.
Makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
But at what cost? What's the interest on this new loan?
42%. Still lower than that crazy 70% they were facing before, but...
Oof. That's still a huge chunk of change.
And there's a catch, of course. That 42%, it could go even higher depending on the market. Like, if the bank's prime lending rate went up, bam, 47% interest.
It's like they just can't catch a break, can they?
It really highlights how vulnerable borrowers were during that time. This wasn't a stable situation at all.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. On one hand, they're trying to play by the rules. The rules keep changing.
Exactly, and that's why this debtor's attention to detail is so important. They kept track of everything. I mean, it's almost overwhelming, the amount of paperwork they submitted.
And thank goodness they did, right? Otherwise, it'd be their word against, well, who knows what.
Right, exactly. Like this statement of consolidated debt from Workers' Bank, dated November 3rd, 1997.
Same day as that new agreement, right?
Exactly. It breaks down all the different parts of their debt. We're talking higher purchase receivables, think layaway, folks. But on a bigger scale, it's all there.
So it shows just how complex their financial situation was.
Absolutely. And here's the kicker. It also lists payments the debtor made before and after that November 3rd agreement.
Wait, so even when the bank wasn't holding up their end?
The debtor was still trying. We see payments from November, December 97, then all through 98.
Wow. Talk about commitment.
Right. And it's not just a few here and there. They provided a whole list of check payments, even pointed out times they overpaid, like actually gave the bank more than they owed at that point.
It's hard to imagine being that persistent when it feels like the odds are stacked against you.
It really speaks to their character. They were determined to do the right thing, even when it wasn't easy.
And then there's that whole issue with the land, the one in Trelawney. We know it went to the JRF, but did the debtor ever officially give up their claim to it?
That's where it gets even more interesting. They actually included a letter from the National Land Agency. This is February 2006, mind you. And it says the land was still registered in their name.
Hold on. So even though the JRF supposedly had it,
the paperwork didn't reflect that.
Another bureaucratic mess up.
Seems likely. Whether it was intentional or not, who knows? But it adds another layer of confusion to an already convoluted situation.
And then, of course, FINSAC takes over Workers' Bank, February 1999. Did that help clear things up?
You'd think so, right? Fresh start and all that. But no, same story, different chapter.
So what happened?
Well, the debtor, they reached out to FINSAC, tried to figure out where they stood, get everyone on the same page.
Makes sense.
But the documents tell a consistent story. No resolution, more discrepancies with the debt. It's like every time they get close to an answer, the target moves.
So frustrating. Do we have any specific examples of those communications with FINSAC?
We do. There's this letter from FINSAC, February 11th, 1999, to the debtor's accountants. They acknowledge the situation, even confirm an outstanding balance, but...
There's always a but.
It's like they completely ignored the debtor's concerns, those broken promises from Workers' Bank, the disputed amounts, nothing.
Just brushed aside.
Exactly. And it happens again, August 31st, 2000, letter from Refine Trust this time, remember them? They were managing some of the FINSAC assets.
Vaguely.
Anyway, they also confirm an outstanding debt, June 30th, 1999 this time. But guess what? Same story, no acknowledgement of the previous issues, and the amount they're quoting, different. Again.
It's like playing a game where the rules keep changing. How can you possibly win?
And then to add insult to injury, FINSAC sends their own demand letter, November 26, 2001. They want their money, plus interest, of course.
Okay, but they're in the right, aren't they? They're owed this money.
Sure, but here's the kicker, the interest rate they're using. 30%.
Didn't that start at 30%, but they went haywire? And what about that 42% costs of transfer loan?
Exactly. It's just inconsistent. Even with FinSAC supposedly bringing order to the chaos, there's still this lack of clarity. And that's what this all boils down to, isn't it? This lack of transparency, this feeling that individuals like our debtor were caught in a system that was designed to benefit the institutions, not the people.
It's a story that sticks with you. This debtor's experience, it's a stark reminder of the human cost of these financial crises, the frustration, the confusion, the feeling of powerlessness.
Absolutely. And their meticulous record keeping. It's a testament to their resilience, to their determination to be heard, even when the system seemed designed to silence them. We need to remember these stories, to learn from them, and to demand better from our financial institutions.
Because behind every number, there's a person with hopes, dreams, and a story to tell.